Chapter 13. Ratchet had no idea what was in store for him as he sat in his office the following morning. But as he sipped his cool drink and recorded yet another restrictive corporate memo, Bigwell, Wani, Cappy, and the resties were on their way over to the corporate headquarters, ready to do battle. As a gigantic limo pulled up in front of Big World Industries, Big World barked out his orders like any strong general. Okay, Baltimore, 10 minutes. Watch you both there. Rodney and Cappy. Mr. Bigwell, should we come too? Asked slightly. Bigwell looked over the rest of his troops. No, no. You stay here and watch Daddy's limo. Right now, I'm going inside and kick some booty, he announced. Then he turns to Gabby. You know, your boyfriend is his genius. What? Rodney asked, confused. No, he's not mine, Gabby began. Then she stopped herself. She wasn't exactly sure what her relationship with Rodney was. He is? I am, Rodney's second. Bigwell nodded. He put a strong hand on Rodney's hand-me-down shoulders. Thanks for still believing in me, he said sincerely. Bigwell looked up at a corporate skyscraper before him and smiled for the first time in a very long while. Ah, it's good to be home, he said as he strolled into the building. A few minutes later, Bigwell charged into a corporate headquarters with all the power of Steel Elephant. It's Mr. Bigwell, the ex gasped. Clang! A tall executive bot's jaw dropped and smashed right onto the top of the head of a smaller executive standing beneath him. Another corporate bot was so excited, he dropped his pants. Bigwell, he murmured as he pulled his trouser back around his waist. The executives parted like the waves of the Red Sea and left a clear pathway for their boss. Bigwell strode with determination down the hall, stopped at the reception desk. Tell Mr. Watson it's 10 o'clock is here, he bellowed. Yes, sir, the flabbergasted receptionist replied. She pushed a button on her phone and announced the big boss arrival. There was no call Ratchet was not happy to receive. No, tell him I'm not here, Ratchet begged his receptionist frantically. Tell him anything, I don't care, just don't let him in. Too late. The door to Ratchet's office slammed open and furious Bigwell busted. Ratchet! He bellowed at an ear-shattering volume. Ratchet let a high-pitched scream and leaped onto a chair and fell. But Bigwell showed no mercy. Okay, right to the point, he declared. What happened? Ratchet asked in a fast, frantic voice. One of the dominoes? Funny eyes? I'll sing you some more. But that wasn't going to do. Not anymore. You're fired, Bigwell announced. Ratchet gasped. Fired? One more clown. This company's never been profitable. Bigwell dismissed that claim with a wave of his considerable wobbly sized his hand and then dumped Ratchet right out of his chair. Puppets, Murphys. Now get out! Ratchet fell to his knees and began to plead. No way! Please listen to me! You can't do this to me! This job's my life! He begged pathetically. You don't know what I've done here. The lies I told, the lies I've ruined. He stopped for a moment, realizing what had just come out with his mouth. Wait, this isn't helping me. He sincerely wasn't. Bigwell had already taken back his chair, his desk, his phone, and his control of the company. Get me security, he demanded as he called the reception desk. Ratchet grabbed the phone receiver from Bigwell's hand. Wait, please, he begged. Can I just make one more heartfelt plea? Bigwell sighed. Okay, what do you want to say? Ratchet raised the receiver high and banged it down in full force onto Bigwell's head. That! He shouted with insane glee. Bigwell collapses to the floor, unconscious. Ratchet stood there for a moment, looking down at him. Even he was surprised by the violence he was capable of. Oh my god, he murmured. I'm as crazy as my mother. Oh. Bigwell moaned in pain. Instinctively, Ratchet bashed him in the head again. Madame Gasket would have been proud. A few minutes later, four burly guards were slowly walking a very woozy Bigwell toward the elevator. Take that face to the chop shop, Ratchet ordered. We don't need him anymore. But it wasn't going to be easy. Not if Ronnie, Cabby, and the Wonderbot had anything to do with. They arrived at the boardroom just in time to see Bigwell being taken away. The Wonderbots moved in quickly, tripping two of the guards and knocking the other two guards' heads together. Without the guards to hold him up, Bigwell crashed to the floor with a thud. Instantly, Rodney jumped onto his back. The Wonderbots flew up behind them and gave Bigwell a giant push. They started rolling down the hallway toward the elevator door, but they soon realized that a crowd of executives had gathered there and Rodney and Bigwell would not be able to get through quickly enough. There was only one thing to do. Crash! Rodney, Bigwell, and the Wonderbots smashed through the top floor window. The Wonderbots grabbed onto Rodney and struggled to fly both him and Bigwell to safety. But the weight of the big guy was too much for the little Wonderbot to handle, and he dropped them. They plummeted to the ground. Worse yet, Roger was hot on their trail. Get him! He ordered his security guards. Kill him! Crush him! Ratchet was so determined to make sure Ronnie didn't escape again that he himself started running after him. But he didn't get very far before he tripped over a dainty little outstretched foot. No! He groaned as he fell to the floor with a thud. He looked up and eyed the culprit. Cabby, did you do that to me? Oops, that was an accident, Cabby said in a small, frightened voice. Ratchet smiled triumphantly, but his joy was short-lived. I meant to do this, Cabby continued, kicking him hard in the butt. Oh! Ratchet moaned. Cabby didn't wait around to gloat. Rodney needed her. She clicked her wheels twice, and small wheels popped out from the soles of her shoes. She took off after Rodney and Bigwell. Ratchet wasn't the only bot in pain. Rodney and Bigwell weren't doing much better after the big drop from the top of a building. Mr. Bigwell? Rodney asked his idol. Are you okay? Bigwell looked at him through glazed, unfocused eyes. Bad face to the job, he said. Bad face to the job. I'll take that as a no. Rodney sighed. The Westies were waiting to find out what would happen next. Of course, they had no idea what had just occurred in the boardroom because they were busy keeping themselves from getting bored. They'd turned on the limo's TV and were bouncing up and down on the seats, all to the musical accompaniment of Diesel, who was playing a tune on a car horn. They turned the limo into a party on wheels. Wow, trap, wow, trap, wow, trap. Crank, Lang, and Fender chanted as they stood up and poked their heads out through the sunroof. Piper seems to be the only one keeping her mind on the task at hand. She pulled her head out of the window just to yell at her brother and his friends. "You guys are so embarrassing," she began, but she stopped just in time to see Ronnie go rolling by on top of Big Woods. Ratchet's men were in hot pursuit. "That was Ronnie," she called to her others. "He's in some kind of trouble." Piper wasn't kidding. At that very moment, a security bot was about to grab Ronnie. Luckily, Cabby was ready for him. With one well-aimed punch, she knocked the guard into a fountain, giving Ronnie and Big Will just enough time to roll safely out front of the gate. She tried to chase after Ronnie, but a giant magnet truck swerved out of nowhere, almost kicking her to the ground. By the time the truck had cleared away, Ronnie and Big World had rolled on. It was clear they needed help, and Piper figured she was just the girl to come to their aid. "Come on," she ordered. "We gotta help Ronnie." But her brother wasn't about to allow that. "No, Piper. You stay here," he told her. "No way." "Let's be honest. We're headed for a huge butt whoop. Please stay here, and whatever happens, making something of yourself. The only thing I got to leave behind." There was nothing more to say. Piper got out of the car and stood beside Aunt Fan. Together, they watched as the car full of Westies rode off into battle. "He's right," Aunt Fan told Piper as the Westie drove off. "They're headed for a huge butt whooping." Piper sighed. It had to be the truth. After all, who knew more about huge butts than Aunt Fan? Rodney had no idea that the Westie were rushing to his aid. All he knew was that Big World needed his help. The scientific genius's mind was complete mush. The bot who had once played beautiful classical piano music was now perfectly happy singing a childhood song over and over. "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands," he sang out. Ronnie glanced behind him just in time to see a fleet of magnet trucks coming after him. Quickly, he steered Big World off the road. Together, they turned onto a crosstown street. They rolled on, against traffic. Car parts were flying toward them, and no one seemed to want to stop for the rolling inventors. It was up to Rodney to steer Big One. He swerved the big guy back and forth, dodging the oncoming parts, and finally landing them on the empty piece of road. There they were out of danger, at the least for a moment. That was going to have to be good enough. Rodney opened Big World's skull and nimbly began rewiring him, hoping to correct the brain damage. "Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true," Big was saying happily, as Rodney pulled and prodded in his head. Rodney switched a few connections, straightened some wires, and then quickly closed up Big Will's skull. "Got it," he mumbled to himself. Big Will's eyes focused. Almost immediately, he sat up and looked around. "Rodney, what's going on?" he asked. "Where are we?" "It's okay," Rodney said with a sigh of relief. "You're all right." Whoosh! A managed truck swerved alongside them and sucked Big Red and Rodney up onto its magnet. Rodney had spoken too soon. Nothing was all right. Ratchet had captured them. Rodney was sure of it. But then he realized the driver of this truck was Cabby. She turned around and waved happily at Rodney. Before Bunny could wave back, another magnet grabbed him and Big World. They were pulled toward the second truck, and that one really was being driven by Ratchet. Still, Cabby wasn't giving up. She sped along at top speed, trying to free Rodney and Big World. But Ratchet kept the pace. Before long, both managed trucks were playing the petrifying game of tug-of-war, using Rodney and Big World as the rope. But help was on its way. Big World's limo, populated with a small troop of dedicated Rusties, was gaining on Ratchet's truck. Swiftly, they opened the sunroof, left Diesel, Crank, and Fender through the open. "Rodney! Grab me!" Fender called out. As he strained toward Rodney and Big World, but the magnetic force of Ratchet's truck got to the Rusties before Rodney could. They were yanked from the limo and instantly their bodies formed a single rusty magnetic ball around Rodney and Big World. Now Ratchet had all his enemies in one place. With a swift turn of the wheel, he bumped Cappy's truck off the road and onto another lane. But Ratchet hadn't considered the force of the magnet on Cappy's truck, because the Rodney Big World rusty ball was still attached to both magnets. Cappy's suit was dragged away. The two magnets traveled side by side for a few feet, and then suddenly the road split in two. Cappy's truck headed down one side of the fork. Ratchet moved along the other. Rodney, Big World, and the Rusties were caught in the middle. As painful as that was, Rodney got an opportunity to get a good look at Ratchet's truck. He made a wonderful discovery. There was a plug on Ratchet's magnet. If he could just pull that plug. The Rusties had spread out between the two magnet trucks, so Rodney walked gingerly across the outstretched Rusties as if they were a tightrope. He reached for the plug with his wrench, but Ratchet spotted him. There was no way he's letting this magnet go. He put the pedal to the metal and began to speed off. But Rodney was just as quick. With one swift turn of his wrist, he released the magnet plug on Ratchet's truck. Wow! The Rusties and Big World slammed onto the magnet on Cappy's truck. They were safe. Or were they? The Rusty's chest was short-lived. Cappy had been so busy moving away from Ratchet, she hadn't noticed where she was heading. The chop shop was right in front of them. Cappy thought fast and turned the wheel to steer the truck away. Out of nowhere, a pair of evil sweepers appeared, surprising her. She tried to turn again, but there was nowhere to go. Smash! The managed truck crashed into the wall of the chop shop. When the smoke from the crash cleared, Rodney, Cappy, and the Rusties found themselves standing in a huge pile of junk and spare parts. Big World was nowhere to be seen. "That's it. Game over," said Crank, throwing his hands up in despair. But Rodney wasn't ready to give up. He started digging through the pile. "This is our moment to shine. This is what show us you really made of." He's trying to boost their spirits, but Fender, who had just fallen off the mana truck and into the pile of junk, was not easy to convince. "This Marcase is a real metal, called Fadium," he retorted. But Crank was beginning to get the message. Rodney's right. "I am tired of just complaining and never doing anything. I want to try." Rodney looked up, pleased, but then Crank continued. "No, forget it, I'm sorry." Rodney went back to work. "No, yes." Crank couldn't make up his mind. You're first, Crank. Rodney made the executive decision. He rolled a huge tire up to the confused spot. First for what? Luke asked. For an upgrade. Rodney announced. Pull out his tools. Let's end chapter 13. As long as it's a long himself, long narrator, just like that right here. It's long and just another long. This scene is same long narrator himself, just like that Ice Age. Just make sure leave a comment. Let's continue on chapter 14.